Missing Mr. Takashi. When I was in elementary school, I had a friend named Takashi. Takashi was an active boy of his age who transcended the boundaries between boys and girls, and was popular with everyone, but he never belonged to any one group. For example, even when we played dodgeball in gym class, you would naturally protect the girls when the opposing team threw the ball at them with all their might, but when it came to close combat with the boys, you would miss the ball and hit them in the groin, causing them to faint in agony. One day, some of the boys in my class and I went to a summer festival, where we found a sign that said "No Trespassers." It was an annual summer festival held at a local shrine, and the shrine grounds were located at the top of more than 500 long stone steps, not counting the actual steps, and in the middle of the steps there was a landing where we could take a short rest. As we walked along the side path of the landing, we saw a rusted and faded "No Trespassing" sign in the deep woods, illuminated by the lights of a snow cave or something, as if it was waiting for us. What do you think is going on up there? But since they were old enough to understand what was going on, they were not interested in breaking into the place without permission, so they simply looked down the darkened road with their heads held high. But Takashi was different. "I'll go take a look." We tried to convince him that it was dangerous to walk in such a dark wooded area, but Takashi shrugged off everyone's attempts to dissuade him and said, "Don't worry, it's okay," and slipped past the sign. To tell the truth, I was still a child, and I was too lazy to even walk alone at night, but Takashi-kun made his way into the darkness without a light at hand, and everyone cheered and watched his back. When Takashi-kun's figure completely melted into the darkness, we suddenly realized that we had not decided on a meeting time with Takashi-kun, and we were forced to wait patiently on a side path at the landing of the stone steps for Takashi-kun, who was not sure when he would return. However, no matter how long we waited, Takashi showed no sign of coming back. "Takashi, you're late. You didn't get lost, did you?" Someone's disturbing comment froze the air in the place. About an hour later, one of them finally got tired and stood up, and all of us started to go check the inside of the sign. To be honest, wasting so much time over the summer festival made me want to go home as soon as possible, but I was mostly concerned about Takashi's safety, so I allowed myself to think that it would be alright if we all went to check the sign lightly. Just as the initiator bent down to go under the sign, a voice was heard from the darkness saying, "Hey," and everyone jumped up and down, straightening their backs. The owner of the voice was Takashi. Takashi-kun came back with a smile on his face and said, sorry for the wait," with a nonchalant look on his face. Takashi's voice sounded bouncy, but his eyes didn't seem to be smiling, which gave me chills. "Too long. What's wrong?" After each of us complained, when our main mission asked what was on the other side of the sign, Takashi stopped smiling and just said, "Nothing," and then fell silent. We were all looking at each other with a puzzled look on our faces, saying whatever we wanted, nothing after all. It was the summer of the 5th grade. After that, I still remember playing with everyone, but now that I am a college student, it is too long ago for me to vividly recall what we used to do. I had left for another prefecture for higher education, so now I was busy with housework and part-time jobs to make ends meet, but I was able to return to my hometown for the first time in a while after 2 years of higher education. My mother informed me that the contact list had been circulated to my parents' house, so I decided to return to my hometown. I was so happy to return to my parents' house for the first time in a long time and to see my old friends that I was in a cheerful mood from the morning of the day of the party. It seems that I made a reservation at one of the local izakaya chain restaurants, and as soon as I showed up at the restaurant, I heard a noisy group of people, and I knew with my sixth sense that they were my classmates from elementary school. I told the waiter the name of the group I had reserved, and I was guided to a seat with that group, which made me inwardly gut-punched. I said to the waiter, "Well, it's been a while. I'm Kono." To be honest, I had not kept in touch with my friends from elementary school for a long time. I had been friends with Kota and Kengo since elementary school, and we went to the same high school together. Both Kota and Kengo had gone to other prefectures for higher education and were quite enjoying seeing their hometown and old classmates for the first time in a while. He waved me in when he noticed I had arrived. I naturally sat down next to them, and Irina, who was the chairperson of the committee at the time, was next to me. I couldn't help but look at her, still looking the same as she did back then. "Kono-kun? Wow, long time no see." Irina spoke to me with a friendly smile, as one would expect from a college girl. Perhaps her behavior made me feel more at ease. I was able to relax my somewhat tense body, and we were able to naturally strike up a conversation. Although we both chose different paths in junior high school, and college, I enjoyed our conversation as if we were back in those days. As I was talking with Irina, Fujita, the organizer of the party, stood up suddenly and proposed a toast. He said, "Well, it's time to have a toast together with everyone who has not gathered for a long time." It seemed that the assembly time had passed and the food and other items were about to be brought in, so Fujita suggested taking a roll call of everyone, whose mood had changed considerably while the drinks were coming. I myself have not changed much, including my hairstyle, but Kota and Kengo have dyed their hair and their taste in clothes is so extreme that some people cannot tell who is who unless they take a roll call. Considering this, I wonder how Irina was able to recognize me at a glance. Well, I guess that's proof that I really haven't changed, but it also made me feel a little sad. Fujita reads out the list printed on a piece of paper and takes the roll call, and those who are called cheerfully raise their hands to answer. I smiled at my classmates, whose appearance had changed each time I saw them, comparing them to my childhood in my brain. After the roll call was completed, Fujita read out the names of those who were absent. During the reading, there were comments like, "Oh, there he is. And I missed him." We all felt a little disappointed because one of the absentees was the name of our homeroom teacher whom we had missed so much. Well, the homeroom teacher, who has been living outside of the prefecture since her marriage and retirement, was just too busy raising her children to come, so she sent a telegram instead, and Fujita read the contents on her behalf. "I hope we can get together again, including the homeroom teacher and the absentees." I thought so, but then I suddenly noticed something strange. After the reading of the telegram from the homeroom teacher, it is easy to imagine that the toast is about to take place, since everyone has already picked up the drinks that have been handed out. However, there was one person who was not yet present and not included in the absentees. That's right, Takashi. When the roll call was taken, Takashi's name did not appear on the list of absentees. I wondered why and asked Irina next to me, "Hey, is Takashi here?" Irina hesitated for a moment and then asked, "I'm sorry, who is it?" She asked me with an air of not really remembering. I thought to myself, "Oh, Takashi-kun, Irina has forgotten me." Then I asked Kota, who was sitting next to me, about Takashi-kun's whereabouts. "Who's that? Who's that?" Kota's answer puzzled me for a moment, but I quickly bit back, "No, it's Takashi-kun." However, Kota muttered, "I wonder if there was such a guy at," and started asking Kengo and his classmates next to him about Takashi-kun. I was worried that everyone had forgotten about Takashi-kun. I waited for their replies, but to my dismay, they told me that they had all completely forgotten about Takashi-kun. When I asked Fujita about this reunion, he told me that he had just unearthed the contact list from back then and contacted his parents' house, and he conversely yelled at me in a creepy way that no student named Takashi was listed on that form. When I asked Fujita about this reunion, he told me that he had just unearthed the contact list from back then and contacted his parents' house, and he conversely yelled at me in a creepy way that no student named Takashi was listed on that form. "Maybe that's why, because I brought up the name of a student who wasn't there," he said. "What? Who are you talking about?" Or "Oh my god, stop it. Stop it." The girls were very critical of me, and Fujita and the other boys admonished me, "Aren't you confusing me with someone from junior high school or high school?" I couldn't get Takashi out of my head, and I stubbornly continued to drink, wondering how everyone could have forgotten about us when I had such clear memories of playing with him. Arina, Kota, and Kengo were worried about me and tried to talk to me in between conversations, but I was so stubborn that I wanted to tell them that they were the ones who were crazy, sucking on an edamame and mumbling I was really there. And I don't remember anything. I was so stubborn that I wanted to tell you guys that you were honestly funny. Then Arina asked, "Do you have any episodes that we can remember?" "Yes, I do." As far as I could remember, Takashi was a popular person who had a connection with everyone. I started to talk to the three of them about Takashi's foolishness in dodgeball and other episodes I could think of, but none of them seemed to fit, and they just lowered their eyebrows. Rather, their memories were being supplemented as if Takashi was not there, although they remembered the episodes I told them. When I finally told them what had happened at the summer festival, Fujita, who had been drinking at a distant table, reacted to the volume of my voice, and a few of the boys started to bite. "I remember the summer festival. I remember it, too. I remember it. I mean, there was a no-entry sign, wasn't there? There. Yeah. And then somebody went in, right? And for some reason, they were excited. But this is a silver lining. This might be an opportunity for me to remember Takashi." I quickly told them that it was Takashi who had broken into the off-limits area, and that after we had been waiting for an hour, Takashi had come back and told us that nothing had happened. Everyone looked at each other with suspicion, but as it turned out, everyone had the same understanding of what had happened. They looked at each other and pondered. If they can't remember Takashi-kun, even after all this reminiscing, he probably doesn't exist in their memories anymore. I shrugged my shoulders in obvious disappointment, but I decided to turn things around and enjoy the reunion. That night, after the after-party, I came home and lay in the living room of my parents' house for a while, just staring blankly into the air, doing nothing. My mother, perhaps unable to bear the sight of me, asked, "What's wrong with you? Come to think of it, doesn't your mother remember Takashi-kun?" I asked my mother out of curiosity, but she tilted her head and said, "I don't remember there being such a boy." I wondered if it was all a misunderstanding or a misunderstanding on my part. As if to confirm this, I received a call from Fujita, who had been in contact with the homeroom teacher at the time, and when I picked up the phone, he took the trouble to check and inform me that Takashi was not on the list at the time. I replied, "I see, I'm sorry," to which Fujita replied, "I'm sure he got mixed up with his friends from junior high school or something." The next day, I received a call from Kota and Kengo, and to my surprise, they told me that they had reached an agreement with some boys to go to that shrine to see if they could find a plaque there, and they urged me to join them. The faces that gathered in that way were the same as those of those days, and except for Takashi, all of them had grown up. If I am not mistaken. The stone steps, which had been long and painful when I was growing up, were climbed up to the landing rather easily, and we all gulped with bated breath when we found the no trespassing sign at the end of the side path through the bushes. It was broad daylight, but this was exactly what we remembered from those days. However, because it is daytime, we know what lies ahead. The other members of the group said that for some reason they could not remember who had gone to check the end of the sign at that time, so they probably came here for the purpose of regressing their memories. I had come because I was concerned about what Takashi had said about nothing, but I had resigned myself to the fact that I would probably never find out anything even if I did. After passing through the sign, we continued on an unpaved mountain path through the trees that completely blocked out the sunlight. The winding, narrow path took more than 10 minutes even for an adult, and we were happily chatting about how we had never seen such a path before and how much fun it was becoming, perhaps to appease our sense of adventure. After a short distance, we emerged into a space only about 1 tatami mat in size, but it was still a dimly lit space with a canopy covered by trees. However, In the middle of it, there was a decoration that seemed to be a shimenawa, a sacred straw rope, which meant no trespassing, and in the center of it was a dirty-looking jizo, a Buddhist image of a Kashida-garba, whose head had fallen to the ground. It was so creepy that we could do nothing but stare at the scene in silence for a while, our tension from a while ago having dropped. As soon as we stepped out onto the dance floor, we were all freed from our nervousness and began to get excited, saying things like, "This place is really scary, and wasn't this place famous?" I was thinking back to that time and wondered if Takashi-kun had found the jizo by himself on that path. Naturally, checking the end of the sign did not bring back everyone's memories, and in the end, the meeting was dismissed without anyone mentioning Takashi. After I returned home, I turned over my belongings in the closet of my room and looked through all of my elementary school books and other memorabilia. There was no sign of Takashi at the sketch contest, the field day, the factory tour, or even in the graduation album. I wondered if my memory was faulty. I searched Google for memory disorders and came up with amnesia, but my memories, including Takashi's, were not different from the real events, and I could remember almost all of them as they were. I was skeptical and went to hospitals to check if I had amnesia or dementia, but I was diagnosed as being in perfect health. So why are my memories different from everyone else's? After that, it became a kind of rite of passage for me to ask about Takashi whenever I ran into my classmates, and they would reply in disgust, "You're talking about that again?" Kota, Kengo, and Arena warned me to stop talking about Takashi, but I couldn't agree with them, so I occasionally asked them about Takashi-kun with a rebellious spirit. Now I am married, have a child, and am a father, but nothing has been resolved about Takashi. Did Takashi not exist in the first place? Was he an existence created by my memory? Or did Takashi-kun disappear from everyone's memory except mine? I am sure everyone will think I am crazy, but I will not give up and continue to search for Takashi-kun. This concludes this story. Thank you for listening to the end.